There are people around college football that don't believe Fernando Mendoza should win the Heisman Trophy this Saturday in New York. And my question to those people is, what are you thinking?
You are Locked On Hoosiers, your daily podcast on the Indiana Hoosiers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, and it is the Locked On Hoosiers podcast. I'm your man, Jacob Goins. I appreciate you being here, making this your first listen or your first watch every single day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. Well, thank you so much for being here, making this your first listen or your first watch, and of course, being a part of the #1 sports podcasting network in the country and in the world. So thank you so much for doing that. Also, shout out to those of you who have joined our Everydayer Club already. You can find that in the show description, whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on audio, or you can look it up right now. Go to lockedonhoosiers.supercast.com. $5 a month. You're going to get ad-free audio. You're going to be invited to our members-only Discord, exclusive access to our national bonus shows. You've got extra merch. You got all sorts of stuff going on with our Everydayer Club. So thank you so much for those who have joined that already as well. Well, it's a busy day here on Locked On Hoosiers as we'll talk about basketball, have some clips from our live show last night about Indiana just absolutely obliterating Penn State with an historic shooting night inside of Assembly Hall, especially for Lamar Wilkerson. More on that, and if we're feeling any better about the game against Kentucky coming up this Saturday. But as we get closer to Saturday, it's a big day for Indiana that day too. There's a Heisman Trophy ceremony going on in New York City where not yours truly, I wish I was going. No, your quarterback, Fernando Mendoza, is going to be there alongside 3 other remarkable players across college football, and one of them will go up and receive the greatest trophy in the sports, the individual trophy anyway, and that is the Heisman Trophy. And there are people around college football, whether they're fans or some experts or, TV, radio, podcast, whatever. There are people that believe that Fernando Mendoza does not deserve the Heisman Trophy in 2025. And to those people, I ask, what in the world are you thinking? I ask, what football have you been watching? And my most genuine question is, why do you think that? Because I just don't believe you. I refuse to believe people that think there's going to be some sort of drama on Saturday night in New York City for the Heisman Trophy. Folks, our friend at FanDuel already pulled it down. You can't even bet on it anymore. That tells you everything you need to know about who's winning this award on Saturday night. And if that does come to fruition, that's something that Indiana should absolutely celebrate and will absolutely celebrate. That's a major honor, something that Indiana simply does not do, which is win Heisman trophies. Not saying they wouldn't celebrate it. I'm saying Indiana does not historically win Heisman trophies, okay? And so there are people who believe after watching this season who say that Fernando Mendoza shouldn't win it. And I simply cannot wrap my brain around this idea. All right, you've got Jeremiyah Love, the running back from Notre Dame. You've got Pavia, the quarterback from Vanderbilt. You have Julian Sayan, the quarterback from Ohio State, and then Fernando Mendoza, the quarterback from Indiana. And when you start comparing the stats and you start comparing the records and you start comparing the moments and you start comparing everything combined in one big pot, it really is not all that hard. And I don't think there will be any drama on Saturday night in New York City. But let's look at the stats just for fun, okay? You do have 3 quarterbacks and 1 running back. So that does make it a little bit more difficult. And it's fascinating to see how this award has changed over the years. When I was growing up, it was a running back award. Now, over the last 10 or 15 years, it's been dominated by quarterbacks. It's crazy how that has changed. But you look at Jeremiyah Love, okay, 13, almost 1,400 yards, 18 touchdowns, also had 3 receiving touchdowns on a solid Notre Dame team. All right, Jeremiyah Love was the most dominant running back in the country this year, and it was not even close. You look at Pavia, the quarterback from Vanderbilt. He had 3,200 yards, 27 touchdowns, just 8 interceptions. A 71% completion percentage is remarkable. Also had 9 rushing touchdowns on 800 rushing yards there in Nashville. All right, pretty good. Julian Sayan, 3,300 yards, 31 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, and a stupid 78% completion percentage. Then there's Fernando Mendoza, who threw for 3,000 yards, 33 touchdowns, just 6 interceptions, a 72% completion percentage, also had 240 yards on the ground and 6 touchdowns. And so Mendoza's right there with all the others in terms of their stats. Does Julian Sayan have a better completion percentage? Sure. Does he have as many touchdowns? No. Does he have more yards? Sure. But that's what this really comes down to, right? And that was the conversation going into the Big Ten championship game. Was, yes, this is number 1 versus number 2, but this is also the Heisman Trophy, basically show me game. This was, hey, go win the trophy, go win the dang thing. And Fernando Mendoza did that, right? He's the one that had a touchdown drive and allowed Indiana to win 13-10. I understand Ohio State missed a field goal, but, it is what it is. Fernando Mendoza went and won the game and won the Heisman, and Julian Sayan didn't. But let's eliminate the other two for just a moment here. Jeremiyah Love is a running back on a Notre Dame team who is not a part of the college football playoff. Diego Pavia is a quarterback of a team of Vanderbilt who's not in the college football playoff. And while historically that has not been the end-all be-all, right? If your team is playing in the national championship game or in the 4-team playoff or now in the 12-team playoff, while that's not the end-all be-all, it definitely helps, and it definitely should be taken into consideration because it's about giving the award to the best player in the country. How can you be the best player in the country if your team is not one of the best 12 teams in the country, which is an argument for the playoff, and you could talk about that at a completely different time, but you get my point. We've got 2 players, a part of 2 teams who are not playing anymore. Well, Vanderbilt's going to play in the bowl game because Clark Lee says they like to compete and play football there. Notre Dame is not, but you get my point anyway. It came down to Julian Sayan and Fernando Mendoza. It came down to who played better in the Big Ten championship game. And it was Fernando Mendoza. He's the best player on the best team, period. End of debate. That's it. That's all you have to say. He's the best player on the best team. And there's a reason you cannot bet on it anymore. Fernando Mendoza is your 2025 Heisman Trophy winner. And if he doesn't, for whatever reason, then there's a serious issue. But I feel very confident that he will win it. I think there is no drama on Saturday night. And I think Indiana is going to have a Heisman Trophy winner leading the team as the number 1 team in the college football playoff rankings come Saturday night, thanks to Fernando Mendoza. All right, coming up on this Locked On Hoosiers episode, we are going to talk some basketball. Our buddy Brian Smith was able to join us and help us out a little bit, talking some basketball as Indiana just has a historic night shooting against Penn State. Plus, that game against Kentucky Saturday looks a whole lot better. We talk about that coming up next here on Locked On Hoosiers. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by FanDuel. NFL Sundays move fast, one big play, and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift. A receiver gets hot, defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. We've seen a ton of those over the NFL. How about the Monday night game? You could have live bet that, and if you bet the Eagles, I'm sorry, you probably lost. No, you did lose. We've seen this in basketball. We've seen it in football. It's happening every single night, and you can be a part of it with FanDuel right now. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you.
You are Locked On Hoosiers, and I am Brian Smith, your host, in for Jacob Goins tonight. After Indiana absolutely, unequivocally takes apart Penn State from the outset, this game was not close after about the first 2 minutes. And to be honest, if Indiana wanted, they probably could have set an Assembly Hall record for points. But the big story tonight, I'll just get right to it. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to podcast like this. Lamar Wilkerson just goes off. We're going to talk about that throughout the podcast. There isn't going to be just segments. Going to be a lot of shout-outs to Mr. Wilkerson. But we're also going to talk about why Indiana's offense was so good tonight as compared to that travesty that I watched from the Gainbridge Center over in Indianapolis this past weekend. It's passing. Indiana was awesome with their ability to pass the basketball, be timely, be accurate with their passes, setting up their shooters. So all of that together, we're going to have likes and dislikes, just like Jacob normally does, but there's not going to be a whole lot of dislikes. When your top scorer drops 44, sets an Indiana record, dislikes are at a very, very low number. So what were the things besides Lamar going off? Let's get to that to set him up, because he lived off what everybody else was doing. Good pressure on the basketball, good ball handling. They weren't throwing it away. They had 4 turnovers at half. Penn State, a very young team, by the way, 3 freshmen in the lineup. That's generally not a good thing. Indiana took advantage of it. They forced them into some tough shots. And even when they got some good looks early, Penn State failed. And then their body language started to sink. Their communication on defense was a travesty. And Indiana made them pay. The experienced team at home inside Assembly Hall was just completely superior in every way, shape, or form. And the shots were falling. You know how that energy kind of gets rolling when you're a basketball team. That's the case tonight for the Hoosiers. And now it's just time to talk about Lamar. They were talking about it at the end of the broadcast on FS1. They were just kind of going over his shot chart. And it's rare for a guy to have 35, 40, 50 points, whatever it is, college game, high school game, NBA game. They usually have a spot on the court. He was all over the place. He hit 1 shot from the corner for 3, and he hit 9 other shots from the left wing all the way around to the right wing. Some were way behind the arc, some were not. Some were off screen, some were pull-ups. It didn't really matter. The bucket must have looked like it was 10 foot wide for Lamar, and hats off to him. He earned every one of those shots. This is why Indiana basketball can be fun. This is what I remember as a kid. For those of you that are older like I am, I'm 52 years old. Jay Edwards, Steve Alford, and Pat Graham, a lot of different guys that could shoot it from deep. Calbert Chaney, whoever you want to throw out there. These are the kinds of guys that I expected to see shoot the ball well. Maybe not 44 points in a game, but hitting 5 threes in a game. Brian Evans, whoever you want to go with, not a big deal. But we've missed some of that in the last 10, 15 years as Indiana fans. Congrats to Lamar. He was lights out from early on. Hit the first 9 points for IU were his shots from behind the arc. That's a weird way to start. And I forget who it was. Somebody else hit another 3 right after that. Maybe it was Connerway. I can't recall which guy it was, but they just were on fire. Penn State did not adjust, and Indiana poured it on. This is something that some teams don't always have. And I wasn't sure if Indiana was going to have that killer instinct. Part of it was Lamar's shooting tonight, but at the same time, this was a team that across the board, defensively, when there was a loose ball, they were diving on the court. Enright and some of the other guys, as they always do, getting floor burns. That was great. They also had a bunch of players that really hustled when there was a pick. And Penn State, they got some guys loose. They would run at shooters. Why was the energy so high? I have no idea, but I'm not going to complain about it. As for Penn State in general, just want to give a couple of shout outs. I mean, they played hard. They just can't execute. That team, they were pretty bad. The Mingo kid's got a chance. He had 19 points, extremely athletic. He's the kind of guy that, with the way he plays, length and all that, kind of reminds me of a Michigan State player or somebody like that that's kind of up and coming. He's going to be the best player on that team until he leaves there. Sad for him to play on a program that's that bad right now. But again, 3 freshmen in their lineup. The Tunka kid, he hit some shots from behind the arc, but he was the only guy in their starting lineup to hit a triple, and they hit 2 on their starting line. I mean, that's bad, man. Indiana from deep for this game. This is an insane stat line. 17 of 31, 54.8%. Just shooting in general from the floor. This is another ridiculous stat. I don't remember many Bob Knight teams having any stats like this. 42 of 61, 68.9% rebounding. That's obviously Indiana's biggest Achilles heel. I don't think that's any secret. They won the rebounding edge tonight. 28 to 21. Assists, Indiana had 30. 30. Here's the stat of the night in comparison. Penn State, how many assists? Without looking, how many do you think the Nittany Lions had? This is really hard to believe. If this is truly accurate, Penn State has even more problems, believe it or not, than what the final score of 113 to 72 shows. They had 6 assists. That's one of the worst stat lines for any team stat in any game that I've ever seen in college. But 6 assists, that is pathetic. But Indiana, again, pressured the basketball, forced them to be a dribbling team, a team that became stationary. They lost any body language or energy that you could see by about the 7-8 minute mark into the game, and Indiana made them pay for it. The killer instinct overall, and again, Lamar at the top of the board here for that, but the killer instinct was there. And that's the way Indiana basketball needs to be every game, every season, no exceptions. With that, when we come back, I want to talk a little bit about the offensive side, passing the basketball, what that can look like when you're doing it the right way, and why these things can snowball in a positive manner. That is next here on Locked on Hoosiers.
Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by Rougier Ready. Let's talk about something that most men don't bring up, but they absolutely should. Stress from work, money, and life, it doesn't just switch off at night. And when it shows up at the worst possible time, Rougier Ready is designed to help you take back control. Rougier Ready is a next-generation prescription treatment created to support both the brain and the body so you can feel present, confident, and ready when the moment matters the most. Rougier Ready combines 3 clinically proven ingredients in one simple mint that dissolves under your tongue so it absorbs fast. It's easy to understand why over 150,000 men have already made the switch. If you've been thinking about taking the next step, now is the time. Head to Rougier.com/lockedoncollege. That's RUGIET.com/lockedoncollege. Rougier.com/lockedoncollege to get 15% off your order for a limited time. Rougier Ready. Feel present, feel confident, so you feel ready.
Thank you once again for making Locked on Hoosiers a part of your day each and every day. And there's an extra opportunity. We've got the Everydayer Club. It's just getting started, $5 a month or $50 in a year. The URL will be down in the description, but it's pretty simple here. You get to use all these different shows, have fun checking out, whether it's myself filling in for Jacob or us together, whatever it may be. You can get it ad-free. And you also get the Discord access, etc. Just check out the link below and have some fun with that. So that's another opportunity for you with this program. Let's talk a little bit about passing. Indiana basketball, again, when I was growing up, was very special with passing the basketball, team first, etc. And I know it's a different era where you've got to be able to create your own shot to a certain degree, and that's something else Indiana's not great at. But for whatever reason tonight, and I know it doesn't sound like something that you should be bringing up because these are college guys that were recruited, but the accuracy with the passing to set up shots tonight was really good. The slightest difference between catching it like square to your body and outside your body, that changes rhythm, that changes time, that changes the distance for the defender to come and run at you. Indiana was pretty darn accurate with that. I have no idea why. Maybe it's playing in Assembly Hall. The comfort level really is that massive in comparison on the road. That's a problem if they can't do that consistently on the road. They certainly didn't do it this past weekend in Indianapolis, but they were just really accurate. Now, I'm not talking about just Wilkerson getting jumpers. He had some that were really good passes that set him up, and some of them he'd take a dribble, get kind of a rhythm going, and he would do it himself. But bottom line, Indiana's passing was the difference. And once you get a young team like Penn State down, and they buried them early, again, cannot stress this enough. Body language, if you watched like an and one play or Indiana hit a shot, you would see the camera kind of zoom in, and you could just see the Penn State players. It was just like they had 1,000 pounds of weight on each of their players back. They didn't handle it well, and Indiana thrived off their negativity. They fed off of that. You keep throwing the ball around, making guys chase. It's not fun. You will use a lot more energy on defense. I don't care if it's basketball, football, whatever sport. And then the team runs down the shot clock and still knocks it down. That is really, really hard to handle. Penn State didn't do a very good job with it. They didn't rebound mentally or physically from it. And Indiana thrived. As long as Indiana continues on that path, I think this is a team that's borderline an NCAA tournament team. If you shoot like you did tonight, you're a top 2 seed. But I highly doubt Indiana plays the game this well again, the regular season. But you've got a chance to make the tournament and be somebody that nobody wants to play. Your passing, your ability to be team first. And then let's just be honest. If a guy gets hot, hey, beat him the basketball. Guys gave up some shots that weren't bad shots if they would have taken them, but they were looking for that Wilkerson guy. That's the ultimate team basketball that I grew up with. And I'd imagine that most of you really, really like. If you see Indiana basketball like they were against Louisville, the dribbling around the top, everybody standing and looking like two totally different teams. I know it's the same players, but it might as well have been aliens in Indiana uniforms, especially that first 10 minutes of that game against Louisville. It was just horrible to watch. I have no idea why it was so different. The movement was better, dribbling better, passing better, shooting better, everything. This is what it's supposed to look like. One last thing here, and I'm going to keep this one kind of short, and I'm going to get into the comments. Dislikes and dislikes. Passing was top of the board. The shooting obviously was elite. The rebounding was good. But I want to reiterate my favorite by far is when you get a team down at the Big Ten level, 10, 15 points is nothing at the Big Ten level. Nothing. Even against a young team like Penn State, again, 3 freshmen, you have to absolutely step on their throat. No exceptions. Indiana did that tonight. If you do not, teams will come back. Indiana's done that in the past. Teams have done it to Indiana. Indiana had a couple of games in the last few years. They're up 15, 18 points and lost. You have to step on somebody's throat. The Hoosiers did that tonight. The only dislikes, really, just they missed a few free throws. There were a couple stupid passes here and there, but there was no category that I was like, yeah, that was bad. They need to be better at maybe blocking shots, but they don't have the players for that. There's nothing based on the roster they had tonight that I could really say this was a problem. Penn State drove the ball a little bit. Again, they've got the young freshman that's a good player. He got into the lane several times, but that's just a good basketball player. The Mingo kid, he's going to be a problem in the Big Ten. By the end of this year, I don't think anybody's going to want to guard him very much. Outside of that, what is there to be disappointed about? Indiana just kicked the tar out of Penn State from start to start. I literally can't come up with a definitive dislike for this game. That's how much they crushed Penn State. It's just wild because I'm sure Jacob will tell you, I am not the most positive guy. I'm going to let it rip. Indiana played one of its best games ever, literally, in Assembly Hall tonight. Here are a few of the comments tonight. Good sign when we're posting this with a whole half to go. Yeah, I put this up at halftime because, the game was over. I was starting to put up the notes before halftime, like how it was over. There was no reason not to. It was complete non-contest. Way up with Josiah Miles. I never see him. I don't know if Miles is hurt or what. I really okay. Somebody says he's got the flu. Fair enough. Lamar Wilkerson for president. I don't know if we need to vote him into office, but man, he was 10 triples and 44 points. Kind of hard to argue with that not being the guy that's going to end up with being Big Ten Player of the Week. If this is not, I don't know what happened. He's going to have to play really bad in the second game this week not to get Big Ten Player of the Week. Let's see. TJ Peters. Hope we can get some more of that on Saturday. Yeah, I'm going to probably go to the IU at Kentucky game. You're not going to shoot as well at Rupp, but again, hopefully this team basketball on the offensive end, it obviously helps Indiana on defense. They need to shoot well early. That seems to be the key. If Indiana shoots well early, their energy is a lot different. Russell Baxter, look what they can do against bad teams. Now let's work on the good teams. Very good point. Clifford, what's going on, man? I remember a couple years ago, 18 3-pointers on IU, just returned the favor. Yeah, I remember that Penn State destroyed Indiana in that game. Hope Tucker DeVries comes to play on Saturday. I'm disappointed with his inconsistent scoring game to game. Let's be real honest about Tucker. He's not the most athletic guy. He missed that layup early. That was pretty bad, by the way. He's not going to create his shot a lot. He needs a lot of help against the elite defenders with length. Louisville ate him up at points. And he gets some shots off here and there, but he had to really work. He's not the fastest guy, not the twitchiest guy. Indiana screens against teams like Kentucky, Louisville, Purdue, Michigan State, Michigan. That's got to be a different level for him to score. And that's one of the reasons Lamar is so important. I think his range might even be longer than DeVries. That's debatable, but it's a good sign. And he's probably able to get his shot off a little bit better. I'm curious to see which one of those guys Kentucky really runs at early on, because DeVries is probably the better player in some games, and then there's other games it's Lamar. It's hard to say. They are inconsistent. Let's see what the Wildcats do But at the same time, they need somebody else to become a third scorer consistently as well, because it's an open book. You take care of at least one of those two and you shut them down, you're probably going to beat Indiana if you're a good basketball team. Let's see here. NSPR 8586, another like. Dorn keeps getting better. That is a good point. He seems to have gained a little bit of momentum in terms of his ability just to feel comfortable shooting the basketball. The first game he got in, he passed a few shots, wasn't quick to get it up when he did shoot. He looks to be completely different mentally. Hitting 5 shots against Louisville from behind the arc probably helped, but he just looks more like he's more into it. And if he had to start later this year, injury or whatever, they would have a guy that knows he can put the ball in the bucket. That's important. TJ Peters, dislike. Wish they play like that against Louisville. Well, Louisville killed Indiana because they were the better team. They have more length. Indiana's going to struggle against length this year. That's why they're a borderline Big Ten top 10 team and borderline NCAA tournament team, in my opinion. Charles Hood, we still need to take a look inside a little more often. We passed up a few easy looks inside for outside shots. No argument. When a guy does get hot, like Lamar did, I'm okay. But those are like once a year you get somebody that's going to hit that 7, 8, 9 shots from behind the arc, let alone 10. You really can't say much to a guy when he's shooting like that. But with that being the case, Indiana's three-point shooting, they're going to live and die with it. But if you got a guy dive into the bucket, they did pass for the most part. You know, Reed Bailey, different players going to the hoop, Sicily, etc. They get the ball inside for the most part, but they just don't have a post player. And that's one of the reasons the underneath shots are oftentimes available. They don't really respect Indiana. I'm not talking about Penn State. I'm talking about anybody. They've got to find a way to score the ball with bigs in the paint in a traditional manner, at least a little bit. Or in the Big Ten, it's going to be really, really tough sledding because everybody's just going to run at them on the three-point line. And if they drive, so be it. That's going to be the biggest challenge probably. One last comment here before I get out of here. And thank you for everybody that showed up. I'm going to keep this quick because it was just obvious. Indiana just blitzkrieged the poor Penn State and Illinois State. They're probably going to come in dead last, I'd imagine, in the Big Ten. They're too young. Indiana basketball has a chance against Kentucky this weekend. Again, I'm probably going to go. If I run into any of you, I'm probably going to interview a few people. I don't know if I'm going to go into the game. Probably am. But check it out. I've never been to Rupp. If you're there, I'm curious the next time I do a show with Jacob, comment in the chat or what have you. Do you think Indiana looks the same on the road in terms of their energy as compared to Assembly Hall? I say hell no. I think that's a problem. They have to start really fast offensively. This team's pretty weak mentally if they don't see the ball go in the bucket immediately. That's the biggest concern I have for Indiana playing like a Rupp. Kentucky won big tonight against a team they should kill, but they've got 4 losses. They haven't been that good. Do they get right against Indiana? I don't know. But that's what I want to see. The first 5 minutes against UK is going to be very, very important. If Indiana does not shoot well, that game could go sideways. Indiana's got to prove that they can shoot the ball consistently away from Assembly Hall. I mean, obviously they have shooters. They just had a guy drop 10 triples in a game. But at the same time, it's not the same to do that against all the length, all the speed, and all the depth that Kentucky has. They've got more talent than Indiana. It's not that close. Can you run your offense, not be stagnant, and hit shots from the outset against UK? So that's something to think about, and that's where I'm going to leave it. Thank you once again for making Locked On Hoosiers a part of your day. This post-game show was probably the most fun one I'm ever going to do in my life. Indiana absolutely obliterates Penn State in a game that, even though it was 40-some points, it could have been 70 if they'd have really went after it that way. Indiana gets rolling again, and hopefully that continues in Rupp Arena. We will see you all again very soon on Locked On Hoosiers.